Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and today it's something special. It's my 10,000 subscriber Q&A. But first, I wanted to say something directly to you. First of all, I want to specify that I'm doing all this completely unscripted. There's nothing in front of me that's gonna otherwise distract me or anything that I would otherwise say that not be off the cuff, because I want to make sure this is at least somewhat more real than my usual stuff, because none of it's an affectation. I'll stress that, but I do want to make this, I want you to all know this is coming from the heart here. And I want to say thanks. Like, 10,000 subscribers. I never would have expected this. When I started doing the show just less than 2 years ago, I never would have thought I had gotten this far. And yeah, it's been a lot of work, and I've been happy to do the work, though, because it's something I'm passionate about, something that drives me. There's a lot to this show that I put a lot of time and effort into, and it's paying off, and I love to see that. And I never would have expected it got this big, though. 10,000 of you guys, you watch my show? It's baffling to me on some level, considering nothing I've put out has gone viral, nothing I've put out's broken 40,000 views. It's been quiet. It's been a slow growth, but I'm grateful for that. I've been able to recognize names in the comment section when you guys keep talking, and I appreciate that you guys have mostly striven to keep things civil and things haven't gotten to be a weird, messy place. Well, more than you typically get on YouTube, that is. So yeah, I'm really grateful for what you guys have done. Thanks a lot. I'm appreciative that I've got a community here that's passionate about this sort of thing, and that's going to give me good questions. Like, I'm looking through some of these. I got a fair number of questions here, and a lot of them are really good, so I'm really excited about this. And let's hope that going forward in the future, we can probably have more of these. So, let's get into the fun stuff. The first question, what's the story behind Voltorb? Well, I never wanted to tell the public this, but I am a Pokemon trainer. Yeah, I know, it totally does not come across that. But on my recent bout through Kanto, I occasionally go back there for a little bit of holidang and stop by Cerulean Gym to see Misty, because whoo-wee! But putting that aside, I went east, and I went to the power plant, and I came across this little guy. A Voltorb of unusual size, and I had to take him out of that environment. The other Voltorbs and the Electrodes, they were being cruel to him. I couldn't let him stay there. So I took him with me, and now he stays here with me, and he does the subtitles on all my videos. So whenever somebody is being a little bit too snarky or a little bit too up his own ass, then he makes sure to cut things down a peg or provide all the additional commentary that I couldn't otherwise put in one of these videos. In other words, he adds a little bit of personality, and anybody who says that I can't review music or I can't be taken seriously because I got a Pokemon pillow next to it, well, they can have words with him, and he'll blow up in their face about that. So, next question. What is your favorite album that you gave a 9 out of 10 to? Honestly, kind of tough, because a lot of albums, they mature over time. Like, going back to it, I still love those albums that I put in my top 25 albums of 2013, 2014. I think they're great records. Like, and I easily say they earn the 8 and 9s that I've given them. I guess if we're gonna be breaking it down from year by year, it's hard to tell, and that's the thing. Like, when people ask me to do a list of all-time favorite albums, I don't think I'll ever be able to do that, because I like some albums, I would even give some 10s out of 10s for different reasons. Like, in comparison with Highway Star by Deep Purple, you compare it to The Human Equation by Ayreon, I like them for entirely different reasons. I like Speak For Yourself by Imogen Heap for completely different reasons than why I like, say, Nick Cave's The Good Son. And I like Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf for completely different reasons too. The point is that ever ranking them in that particular factor, I set my rankings by year because I have a confined list. But go for broad catch-all answers, I honestly really can't give an answer to that, as much as I'd like to. I will say, though, if you haven't heard Push the Sky Away by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, or Run the Jewels 2 by Run the Jewels, check those albums out both anyways. They're awesome, and they're definitely worth your time. Next question. Outside of Bills or King Kunta, were there any notable singles in recent years that lingered around the bottom of the Hot 100 for a number of weeks that you feel deserve to become bigger hits? Yeah, there's plenty of them, and you see them every year, but the one that jumped out at me the most, it comes from around 2012, 2013, Madness by Muse. Yes, I'm going to be talking about Muse's album Drones in a couple of weeks. I'm excited for it. Yes, I do like Muse, although they do have their fair share of problems. I thought, though, that Madness was an absolutely fantastic song. A great fusion of how to make dubstep work in a more pop rock context. Fantastic groove for that track. I most of the time can sing it, although that high note in the last chorus is ridiculously difficult. Yeah, I think that song had a lot of potential to become a huge hit, and for a while it looked like it would be. It was coming back onto the charts in 2013 thanks to, I think it was an NBA promotion, promotion, but it never took off the way it should, and that does bug me a little bit. I thought that song was fantastic. You always insist the Canadian charts are better, but you don't highlight them. Why don't you compare them to the ones in the US on Billboard Breakdown? Let me explain to you how my schedule works. I know I've gone on about this a couple times. Work a full-time job, try to put out 4 to 5 videos a week. All the editing that goes into Billboard Breakdown, that's seriously 3 to 4 hours of solid work if I want to get it out on time. But I guess the thing is with the Canadian charts, well, keep your eyes open for a couple weeks. I got something special coming. Next question. What is your whole stance on females in country? Who stands out for you? Do you believe there's still room for Kelly Pickler on country radio after these few years if she decides to put out more pop country songs? Yes, there is more room for females in country music. There should be more women in country music. I'm sick of having just to listen to Carrie Underwood. And let's be honest here, there's a lot of great women in country music. I love Casey Musgraves, Brandi Clark, Ashley Monroe. Hell, Kelly Pickler, throw her on the list too. There are great women in country music that I wish we could hear more of. Even in the pop country vein, you got Lucy Hale, and that Kelsey Ballerini album was good. My point is that the way country music is going right now, it's in a bit of an identity crisis. I think they're looking for an artist to really step up and snag a hold of the mass public, and that hasn't really happened yet in the same way. Sure, you got Luke Bryan, but did you hear his most recent single? It was a retread of bro country tropes that we've all heard before. So in other words, yes, there's more room for more women in country music. I think if Kelly Pickler came back with more pop country, she'd do fine. I don't think she will. I think she's more set on that neo-traditional path, and honestly better for it because she does put out good material in that vein. I wish there were more women, and I see more of them. I don't want them to be more like Ray Lynn. I prefer to see more Casey Musgraves, Brandi Clark, and hell, even Reba McEntire in comparison to that. Next question. What is your opinion on dark pop artists who share their personal and intimate stories in their music and are getting a lot more attention at the moment, like Tove Lo? Tend to like a lot of it. A lot of that stuff tends to come from the synth pop revival that's currently going on and getting huge right now. I've talked about a lot of these artists in this sort of vein, like Tove Lo, but you have a lot of synth pop artists that are growing with more swell and presence, and I like that they're injecting more personal, intimate, rough-edge subject matter into their music. A lot of it won't be hits, a lot of it will not be hugely popular, but I do like that they're injecting some of that more material and that it is getting somewhat traction. I'd love to see what Lord's sophomore record's gonna be like. It is a little bit more mature, but I'm curious to see where she goes with it. Same with Tove Lo. I really liked Queen of the Clouds. It's only become a better record the more I've listened to it, but I'm curious where it's ultimately gonna end off. So, but then again, I can't exactly predict trends on the pop charts. So, and on that note, do you ever think that metal will have a resurgence in the mainstream, and if so, what vein will it be to do it? Death, pirate, Viking, post-black metal, etc. Okay, I gotta be blunt with you guys, and this is speaking as a metal fan. While I can't predict trends, most metal will never be fit for the mainstream. Death metal is never gonna be mainstream popular. Neither is black metal, neither is folk metal, neither is most power and symphonic metal either. It was a rare incursion when we had hair metal that was popular throughout the 80s. And even in the 90s when you had new metal cropping up, it was a fad at the time. And the sad fact is that a lot of those fads have not aged well. The sad fact is that metal has a small demographic as it is because it pairs to a very specific audience. Like sure, you have bands like Evanescence who are able to cross over by being as bland and generic as possible. But the same thing is that metal, in terms of more grittier vocals, in terms of those heavier riffs, most of that's not popular these days. As much as I might like it to be, sure you might hear the occasional metal song on rock radio, but it's not the same. But here's the thing I'm always wondering. Why do you need metal to be popular in the mainstream? Like it for what it is. Like, I'll never hear a Nightwish song on the radio. Same with Camelot, same with Ayreon, and I'm fine with that because metal is in its own little subculture. It's perfectly happy where it is. Sure, there'll be the occasional crossover, and it's gonna be awesome when it does, if the mainstream finally does grapple onto good quality material, but it's rare when it happens, and I'm okay with that being rare because let's be honest, the mainstream can't handle metal in most cases, and I'm fine with that. And on the topic of trends, do you think that the US could experience another Latin explosion soon? Belando crossed over, Pitbull has had consistent success, El Perdón reached number 66 and is getting an English remix, Becky G and Prince Royce are recording English music this year, and the US Latino population continues to grow rapidly. Could Latin be the next big thing? Interesting question. More of a genuine case here because there is a larger and growing demographic that would support Latino music. Here's the thing about Latin radio though, you probably don't know. It also tends to play some English-speaking tracks. So while you might have a growing Spanish-speaking population, you might not always have the growth of more Spanish radio. As it is right now, Pitbull's been around and has been solely responsible for reviving several careers. Enrique Iglesias, Mark Anthony, Jennifer Lopez. Like, he's had that growing power, and so far it's continued to work. Enrique hasn't exactly gone away, and so I can see it happening, being a little bit more likely, but I don't see it taking over in the same way. I see it setting more a established niched market, sort of like what happens with country music. Because, in other words, it's going to stick around, we're going to get mainstream crossovers, but not to the same way. Next question. What do you think about the albums from Monsters and Men and Congos? You had your favorite hit songs of 2013 and 2014 respectively. I'm a huge fan of Monsters and Men. I remember listening to their debut album, think it's absolutely excellent. Although it does kind of stick into a rut in terms of a formula, but the formula is great. I genuinely do think they're an underrated band, especially considering they were lumped in as Mumford & Sons ripoffs, which I just think is really unfair. That said, the opening single that I've heard from their newest upcoming album has not really excited me, so I got high hopes for them. As for Congos, see, the thing is, the album was dropped back in, I think, 2011, 2012. I just haven't had enough chance to go back and revisit it to the depth in which I want to. I love Come With Me Now, don't get me wrong, it's a great song, but as it is, I haven't had enough chance to really delve into Congos. So, at some point, if they drop another album, I'll sure as hell cover them, but at this point, I think they're really good. I haven't heard enough of the album, though, to make an informed decision there. Next question. Which band or artist have you fallen out of favor with the most? Oh, God. See, this is a hard part, because I don't really fall out of favor with artists as so much as I have considerations about them that might run contrary to the norm or contrary to the critical consensus. Like, I might be one of the few people who doesn't love Radiohead all that much. I know, seriously. Not a huge Jay-Z fan either. I found a lot of Jay-Z stuff hasn't exactly aged well, particularly stuff in the early to mid-2000s. Outside of that, in terms of artists that have fallen out of favor with me, see, that's hard, because I find artists who fall out of favor, it's based upon other things outside of their music, because they might have our older stuff that is still genuinely good and that's just consistently gone downhill. I don't view that as falling out of favor, I just view that as more as the artist deteriorating. Whereas you have some music that I've liked and consistently like, and then going back to it for critical reprisal, yeah, some of it doesn't always look as good. I used to love an old boy band that was actually created off a reality show called O-Town. I thought they were a ton of fun. Going back to that self-titled album, oh god, it's not good. Yeah, sure, All or Nothing is fun, but Liquid Dreams is disgusting. As a song, it's kind of gross. And as much as I kind of found the band funny, they aren't very good nowadays. It's a critical reprisal. On the other hand, though, you can go back and critically reprise other pop bands from the early 2000s, and there's a fair few that I actually like. Go back and listen to S Club 7. I don't care how plastic it is, those are some damn good pop construction of songwriting. Same with Aqua. Hell, Aqua is actually one of the more original bands when it comes to their songwriting and concepts. They made weird, wacky, offbeat albums with a lot of instrumentation, and I honestly find them to be more interesting songwriters than what was given credit for them on, let's say, Dr. Jones or Barbie Girl. Next question. What are your thoughts about Kanye getting massive censorship during his Billboard Music Awards performance? As contemptible as a human being as Kanye has become, and speaking as a fan of all of his albums thus far, do you think the network was right to interfere as much as it did? Can you interpret this incident as a means of protesting all of Kanye's vices by silencing him, or was this an act of undisputable violation of the First Amendment? Oh god. Okay. I really have avoided giving a lot of opinion on Kanye because I actually haven't covered one of his albums in video form, but let's just say this. From what I read about this issue, for those of you who don't know, Kanye was on the Billboard Music Awards, and apparently he did a couple songs. I think he did All Day and Black Skinhead, and they cut out massive chunks of the presentation. Now, to some extent, that's bad for the actual show, but on the other hand, I kind of get it. It's Kanye West. He's got a reputation for flying off the handle. And even more so these days. He's got that bad reputation. He did it to himself to some extent. So, do I agree with the censorship of large chunks of the songs that weren't swear words? No, it doesn't make them look good. It doesn't make the Billboard Awards look good. But let's be honest, the Billboard Awards have never looked good. But moving beyond that, is it an undisputable break of free speech or anything about the First Amendment? A lot of people don't get what the First Amendment is. The First Amendment is there to protect your free speech from being blocked by the government. Whereas Kanye, who is likely paid somewhat to go and perform at the Billboard Music Awards, his free speech is not getting violated by the fact that they choose to censor out parts of his songs. Yeah, just because he has the right to say it doesn't mean he's free from reciprocity, and doesn't mean that the network has to broadcast it either, especially if he signed a contract with them. Next question. Tell me the backstory around you meeting Needle Drop Anthony Fantana. This is probably going to be the shortest question. We talked on Twitter briefly. I showed up in one of his videos. That's been the extent of our interaction. Seems like a great guy though, so yeah, no problems there. Next question. What is your opinion on Christian music? And if so, what is your favorite Christian artist? I've talked about this one before, back when I reviewed Skillet on my blog and back when I reviewed Hosier last year. I've heard a lot of Christian music. I'm not a fan. I grew up in Catholic school, which inevitably probably colored me towards some of it. But I think that some of my issue with Christian music comes in a couple bents. The first piece is the stuff that is more Jesus loves everybody, more of the hippie stuff. I admire the restraint of it. I admire some of the production of being very light and crisp and beautiful, very scrub clean. But to me, it can come across as a little bit inauthentic when it's done that way. Sure, I'm not doubting your belief, but at the same time, it just comes across as very sterile to me. I did a lot of that stuff when I sang in choir, and on some level, it doesn't speak to me in the same way anymore. The evangelical stuff I shouldn't even have to talk about. I have a very, very strong issue with people deliberately preaching to me in their music, and then I'm expected to critique it as a music critic, because without some way addressing the message, when the music is primarily being used as a way to convey that message. The evangelical music I have no time for. In terms of Christian artists that I like, Amy Grant's put out some quality, I guess, but not a lot. Honestly, I've fallen out of practice with a lot of contemporary Christian music. Even though I've heard a lot of stuff on Christian labels, or I've seen a lot of artists who are identified as Christian, and they put out good stuff. I like Owl City. I like Icon for Hire. I don't like Evanescence, but they don't identify themselves as Christian anymore, so whatever. Next question. You never made it clear on your opinion on Fall Out Boy in general. So what is it? Basically, I think I've given my opinion pretty solidly on Fall Out Boy. I think they're a good band. I think they have a limit to how obnoxious they can get and how long it can stomach them. They've got a great knack for hooks. They're a very solid pop rock band. Their heads are all firmly up their own asses, and to be fair, I think they all know that at this point. They made a couple great albums. I like Infinity on High. I like Folie Deux. And though I've got many, many problems with it, I like Save Rock and Roll. I just wish that Fall Out Boy made more interesting material and went a little bit more for Baroque pop rather than a lot of the pop rock they put out now. As it is, it's just kind of, well, it doesn't stick with me in the same way. Next question. Can you start a series where you review bad music? I want to address this now. I don't like covering bad music. Hell, I don't like giving bad reviews. It sucks. I don't like having to go listen to music that on some level I've got no expectation to be good and am turned out to be exactly right. Or bad disappointments. It's not fun ripping into bad albums because, like it or not, I've got to listen to it 5 or 6 times. And that's never a pleasant experience. To me, one of the things is I will never do a worst albums of the year list because, for one, I will never plan on covering Attila. And for the other, I don't feel the need to highlight more bad music. We already have enough of it as it is. I prefer to spend more time highlighting good stuff that's not given enough appreciation. Instead of asking for me to review bad music, go look at stuff like Casualties of Cool or Poets of the Fall or Karen Jonas. There are bands that can fall more into this vein that are so damn good and yet don't get the critical acclaim they deserve. As such, will I ever do a series reviewing strictly bad music? No, I won't do that. Besides, that would be branding me as more of a Todd in the Shadows ripoff than some people already consider me, so whatever. Next question. In order to appeal to more practicing professional freelance musicians, such as myself, would you ever consider writing reviews in the language of theoretical music? If not, how do you craft your reviews in a way that keeps practicing musicians as engaged as those who consider it more of a pastime? Yeah, okay, this is something that has always kind of irked me, so let me lay out some of my musician credentials right here. I did a lot of piano, I can sing, eventually you will all hear it, not today though. I did a little bit of production work, and I'm a published author, if that means anything. And I've also taken a couple theory courses, if you want to consider that as practicing musician. How do you keep practicing musicians, people in that vein, engaged? Well, I think the best way to do it is be honest. Be honest about where you're coming from. Be able to articulate it the most you possibly can, and be willing to admit where you're going off book, or where you're running into cases where you don't know enough. Because I am fairly certain, almost definitely certain, that there's plenty of practicing musicians who know far more than I do about music, about chord structure, about how proper music is put together. I'm able to recognize trends and stuff like that simply because I've heard so much of it. And a lot of the writing stuff, well, I come from a background in writing. That stuff's more easy for me. But as it is, how do I keep them engaged? Well, performance, show that you have knowledge, show that you're willing to learn, and show that you have enough expertise behind it that you do roughly know what you're talking about. I wouldn't review albums or review genres that I feel that I'm inexperienced with. So for all of these who have asked why I don't review more albums and stuff like black metal, for instance, as much as I like black metal or parts of it, I don't feel I'm anywhere near experienced enough with the genre to provide a fair and honest criticism of it. Same thing with bluegrass, same thing with jazz. Those of you who asked me for Kamasi's The Epic, I'm intimidated by that album. For one, it's 3 hours, for apparently it's like 3 discs and 3 hours long. But the other thing is, as much as I respect jazz and I know parts of jazz, I don't feel like my knowledge is anywhere near extensive enough to criticize that sort of album properly, especially given how incredibly big and labyrinthine it's been told that it is. So yeah, how do I keep you guys engaged? Well, honestly, some of that is coming down to you. Why do you guys tell me? If you guys watch my show, you've got 10,000 of you, somehow. And finally, why do you review music? Is it just something you enjoy doing, or is there more to it than that? Well, that's a tricky question, honestly. I've been asked that a number of times because, Mark, you put so much effort into this. Why do you bother? Or, Mark, you've gotten so much hate in the comments. Why do you bother? Or, Mark, your channel isn't growing the same way that gaming channels grow or other channels go, or if you had a hot chick doing these reviews. And that's the very same, it's a valid question of why I bother doing this. Well, part of it is I do genuinely love music. I've heard a lot of it. I genuinely am passionate about it. I enjoy doing these reviews. I enjoy being able to talk to you guys and getting your opinions back. I feel that's something really special. On the other hand, though, it's part of this is for me is bettering my cultural understanding. Music, for as much as I say movies, music, art, and culture, and as much as I really don't talk about movies as much as I want to, and I might as well address that now. In terms of movies, I'm working my way to figuring out how I'm going to incorporate that into the show, but given how busy my schedule is as it is, it's going to be a bit of time until that part cuts in. But for those of you who criticize, like, you only talk about music, you don't talk about movies, art, and culture. Well, isn't music art? Isn't music part of culture? Isn't music in some way influential in culture? You have to take a look, realize how many musical trends, how many musical artists have impacted art and culture throughout the past, probably century. There's a lot to music and being able to dissect where it comes from, the human mind that creates it, the various insights that it brings in philosophy, religion, art, and culture, and society at large. There's a lot of things about what gets popular and why it gets popular that I always find incredibly fascinating to dive into. And for me, it's greatering my understanding of what makes that things happen. I know I'm not particularly articulate about it, but you know what? It's an exploratory journey for me, being able to delve into that sort of music. And I'd like to think that for my audience, that I can share some of my journey with you guys and that you might learn something. Hell, I learn something new every time I do this. So yeah, for me, it's something special, and I wouldn't be able to do it, or I wouldn't have an audience to have that conversation without you guys. And I have to be honest, I'm incredibly grateful for it. I never would have thought I would have gotten this big. I said that already, but I do genuinely mean it. And that's all of my questions for now. So here's to you guys. Thanks for taking me to 10,000 subscribers. Please tell your friends. Let's get to another 10,000 more. I might do another one of these Q&As. These are actually kind of fun. But until then, I'm Mark. Thank you so much for watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.